I'm Leland Vittert. Good evening. It's not the kind of bipartisan consensus the Biden White House, or any president for that matter, hopes for. But much like their handling of Afghanistan, it's almost impossible to find someone right now defending Mr. Biden's handling of immigration. And there are reasons to believe that the situation on our southern border will get worse. We start in Del Rio, Texas, where there are still thousands living in squalor under a bridge hoping to claim asylum. Take a listen to the reporting of Jorge Ventura.
You said they have a newborn actually in the back. We wanted to just give you guys a look here at the really the situation where we're seeing it in real time. These migrant groups keep flooding in, really almost at this point, it seems almost like hour by hour.
Jorge's standing by. He's going to be with us just in a minute or so to give us the ground truth. Meantime, even the volunteers who are trying to help the illegal immigrants say they are overwhelmed by the steady scream across the Rio Grande.
There is a point in time when there's not much more than we can do. There'll be a point when the numbers are so high that we just work with what we can.
The conditions under the Del Rio Bridge are so bad, Haitians are heading back to Mexico for food and supplies. Once again, Jorge was there.
One thing that's pretty common is that some of the Haitians actually return to the Mexican side because due to the bad conditions and only eating one time a day. So we're seeing that in real time and them using this rope here to transport supplies over to that side. That's the U.S. side. That's Del Rio, Texas. And we've never seen really anything like this. But this is they're going back and forth and the border is wide open.
Because the Border Patrol couldn't control things, the Texas governor ordered the Department of Public Safety, you can see in this video there, to create a makeshift wall of cars to try and corral illegal immigrants and keep them from coming across the Rio Grande. This is all putting President Biden in an impossible political situation. On one hand, he promised this for an administration policy back in March.
If you take a look at the number of people who are coming, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people coming to the border and crossing are being sent back.
But at the same time, he's being pressured by fellow Democrats in Congress to allow just about everybody to stay.
They don't need Cheetos. They don't need hot dogs. They don't need juice boxes. They need freedom. They need freedom, and this administration can do it today. They need to give humanitarian parole. They need to process people asylum claims. They need to stop the deportation.
She's not a member of Congress, but there were a number there on Capitol Hill talking about just this issue. Politico describes it like this: Biden slips into political quicksand amid Haitian migrant buildup. The president is bucking calls to stop deportations of Haitians, even as his team expresses outrage over images of aggressive treatment by border agents. The truth is a little more complicated. Yes, there are a few flights a day back to Haiti with deportation numbers in the hundreds, mostly single men. But new reporting by Axios and the Associated Press say many more are being released into the United States. Video of buses and planes leaving with illegal immigrants for processing in the United States and then release far exceed the pictures of deportations. Axios reports from Del Rio, the Border Patrol processes families and other groups in El Paso, Laredo, the Rio Grande Valley, and Tucson before letting them free with a notice to appear before an immigration judge or to report to an ICE office 60 days from now. Few will end up showing up. Mayor Dan McLaughlin is standing by. His town can't handle the strain created by thousands of new illegal residents, but we start with Jorge Ventura on the border. Jorge, incredible reporting by you and your team. Between that wall of cars and the Border Patrol now sending in reinforcements, do they have things under control?
In terms of the crossing, that has stopped and they have that under control, and they are processing these family units and deporting these migrants at a pretty fast level now. I mean, just a few days ago we had 13,000 Haitians living under the bridge, and right now we're around 5,000. So it is speeding up the processing, and then, like you said before, these family units are now being processed and are now being released inside the United States and going to be reunited with American families here back in the States.
All right, we know you spent some time down in Mexico over the past couple of days. Are there more waves of people coming up through Mexico trying to get across the border right now?
That has slowed down. So when I was in Ciudad Acuña, which is the Mexican town right across Del Rio, Texas, it's a makeshift migrant camp where now Haitians are essentially just stuck there living there. And when I asked them if they have any plans to go to Del Rio, they told me no, that they don't want to be deported. The majority of the Haitians actually, they're living in Ciudad Acuña right now in that migrant makeshift camp. They actually were living under that bridge in Del Rio. Some of them said that they went with no food for up to 3 days and that they actually decided to walk back to Mexico. And in that video, Leland, that I shot, you could actually see that the supply lane of the Haitians on the Mexican side delivering supplies to the Haitians on the American side and using that rope to just keep their balance right there on the Rio Grande. But they've been crossing back and forth throughout the day and the night, and I've never seen anything quite like that.
You saying you've never seen anything like that is saying something, considering how much time you've spent on the border. What are your sources saying, though, up and down the Rio Grande on either side of Del Rio? You've got so many resources in Del Rio. Are the coyotes and traffickers using this as an opportunity to get people across in other areas?
So that's what we are suspecting. Border Patrol telling me is that one thing that they're extremely worried about is that, so right now we're in Del Rio, so 3 hours away we have a town called Laredo. It's also a border town. So between here and Laredo, they actually have Border Patrol checkpoints. Well, those checkpoints right now are unmanned, considering that they had to send 400 Border Patrol agents just here in Del Rio. So you would have to imagine that the cartel is taking advantage of the situation where now we have unmanned checkpoints right here in South Texas.
Interesting that you say that people are now staying in Mexico because they don't want to be deported from the United States. How much of this big surge that we saw over the past couple of days or week, perhaps, was because people thought they weren't going to be deported if they came to the United States?
Well, that's the assumption that we've been documenting here, Leland. This has begun even before the Haitians came. So when we were interviewing Central Americans and the Venezuelans that are coming over, the big conception is that if they could just cross into the U.S. and make it here illegally, that they would be given some type of asylum seeker status or temporary protected status. So the big difference between the Trump and the Biden administration right now is the Remain in Mexico policy. When Trump was in office and he had the Remain in Mexico policy, that's what deterred a lot of the immigration. Now they know that they could actually be released inside the United States and given the court order to appear. So that's the assumption right now, that is, hey, if we could just make it across, we're good to go. And I would imagine that the news of these family units being released into the United States is going to make their way down to the Haitians in Mexico. So now, I would expect that these Haitians now are going to come into the United States just claiming that they're family units just so they can be processed and released here in the States.
Yeah, if they say they're family units, they get treated so differently. Or have you had a chance to talk to any of these people who are in the family units, if you will? They're going to get released in the United States. They've got literally the clothes on their back, which is what you've reported on. Where do they go?
So we've been interviewing some of the Haitian migrants that were sleeping outside of the Del Rio airport, and when I spoke to them and asked them where they were headed, the majority of the Haitians that I spoke to are actually headed to Florida. So when I asked, do you have family back in Florida, they did confirm this. So what we are seeing is flights out of Del Rio. Some of these Haitian migrants are actually going to be bused to the San Antonio airport. From San Antonio, they'll take their flights. But the majority of Haitians that I spoke to that got released into the United States are headed to Florida, according to them.
All right. Jorge, great work. Keep it up, and keep letting us know what you're finding between here and Laredo, all right?
Thanks, Leland.
All right. Good talking to you. Of course, millions of Americans living near the border must just live with the president's decisions and what's happening. Mayor Don McLaughlin, Uvalde, Texas, is about an hour or so from Del Rio. He's been sounding the alarm bells since March. So, Mayor, where do we go from here?
Well, this situation has become this administration has made the United States look like a clown show. I mean, as Jorge said before, your Border Patrol checkpoints are closed. We have one right outside Uvalde. I can tell you right now the trafficking is picked up with human smuggling coming through town. No telling what narcotics are coming through because there's nobody to check it. The border is wide open from West Texas all the way to below Laredo, Texas. And it's just getting, the foot traffic is worse. These, I'm going to call them illegal immigrants, are getting more aggressive with Border Patrol.
What's happening in your town, Mayor? How's this affecting your town, Uvalde?
Well, in our town, we're still having to deal with a bailout. I'll give you an idea. We had families in the park Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. We had a car pull in with a bunch of illegal immigrants. Here come 22 of them out of a Suburban. We're chasing them all through the parks. We've got family in them. Same thing Monday. We had another one do. Our schools have armed guards at them now because we have to worry about these bailouts by our schools. This is ridiculous. This is the United States. We should not
I just
have
want to understand real quick. When you say armed guards at schools because of bailouts, this is groups of illegal immigrants who are being chased who then get dropped off, and you're worried about kids in school? How are those two connected?
Well, how they're connected, most of these cars that we're finding now, when these people bail out of these cars, we're finding firearms in these cars and weapons. So we don't know who has a weapon, who doesn't have a weapon. And so most of the time they run by a school and jump out by a school. So we have to lock the schools down. 48 times in the spring, we had to lock our schools down in Uvalde. 48 times. That's
Wow.
ridiculous.
What about in terms of, are people staying in Uvalde? Is all of a sudden you have a population explosion there, or is it just sort of coming through town and causing all this chaos?
Well, fortunately, they're just coming through town here. Most of them are just passing through town. We have passed an ordinance in town that if you can't produce a negative COVID test or have been vaccinated and come from a third world country listed by the CDC, not our rules, their rules, then you are not allowed to get off the bus in Uvalde.
Wow, interesting. So far, is that working?
Well, we hadn't anybody get off the bus yet.
All right, fair enough. Mayor, thank you. We'll see you this weekend to see for ourselves firsthand what's going on down there.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, us too. So far, the president has dodged making any serious comments on the border crisis. Yesterday, he seemed a little annoyed, you might say, when the British Prime Minister offered to take questions from the press during an Oval Office meeting. Take a listen.
Would it be okay if we just have a couple of questions, just a couple of questions and I think we're going to be ruthless.
All right. After questions to the Prime Minister, junior press aides at the White House hustled the press out without Mr. Biden taking a single question. White House reporters complained. White House reporters are entitled crybabies. I know, I used to be one. But it doesn't mean that they don't have a legitimate gripe, perhaps. Sarah Fisher covers the media for Axios and joins us. All right, Sarah, we will not ask you to adjudicate the gripes of the White House press corps. They are numerous. But are we reaching an inflection point with the White House press corps and President Biden?
I think reporters are definitely frustrated because you're coming off of a 4-year presidency under Donald Trump where they thought they, were being misled all the time or lied to or not treated fairly, et cetera. And I think the expectation was going into the Biden administration, again, this is the expectation of those reporters in the White House press corps, that the relationship would be really good and that it would be flowery. And I think what you're seeing is a tired president who is trying to get through a meeting, who was clearly caught off guard when, Boris Johnson took questions from his reporters to British reporters, and Biden probably didn't know that was coming. And so I think that moment has now added on to the past 9 months of reporters feeling like their expectations weren't being met. I don't know if we're hitting an inflection point, but it definitely feels like the White House press corps is starting to feel exhausted by this routine where they were expecting so much access and they're just getting normal access.
Well, sort of normal access by old standards, abnormal access by President Trump standards, even perhaps by President Obama standards, interviews versus past presidents. This goes back to last month, but President Biden has yet to give a television interview since then. At this time of their presidency, Obama 113, President Trump 50, Biden 9. Are you hearing any reporting of sort of the reasoning behind the White House's I don't want to say hiding, but certainly much tighter control of the president?
You nailed it on the head when it's tighter control of the president. So their strategy here is to be going through the press secretary, Jen Psaki, who's had a ton of press conferences. Remember, during the Trump administration, a lot of the White House press conferences simply just didn't exist. But the strategy has been rerouted a little bit differently. One, they're really heavily relying on press conferences with the press secretary as opposed to the president himself. And then two, they're relying on a lot of the president's surrogates around him to be doing a lot of press and be talking openly to the press. Now, obviously, there's frustration from the White House press corps because they cover the president, right? That's the person that they want to hear from. But that's just not the strategy that this White House has employed. I think if you want to know why they haven't employed it, President Biden is walking into a situation where he's being just pummeled with I don't want to say scandal, but situation after situation. You have Afghanistan. You have this latest deal between the U.S., the U.K., and Australia, which is isolated France. You have Haitians at the border. There's so much going on that I think they probably just think at this point there's little upside to him taking a lot of questions while there's just a lot that they're handling.
Yeah, in fact, it appears as though at least a couple of times President Biden even wanted to take questions and didn't. Take a listen to this.
Can I ask you a question? Of course. One of the things that I've been working on with some others is
Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
Evidently, there was somebody who didn't want him to take questions. I guess the question for you would be this. How much of this sort of frustration from the press corps has to do with now all of a sudden there are things to question the president about because the honeymoon phase is over, and as you point out, there's real issues to discuss?
I think the press has felt like there's been real issues to discuss from the start, to be very honest. You remember in the beginning of the presidency, we were overturning executive orders. There was so much happening in Congress. I think that they'd felt this frustration for a long time. I think what you're starting to see, and those clips were really good, is that the president's team has a plan for how they're going to manage the press, and the president is going to do what his team says. This is totally different from the Trump White House. If Trump wanted to answer the reporters, Trump just answered reporters' questions. But Biden's going to be deferential to his team. And so maybe what you're seeing here is that there's a plan, a lockstep plan. Biden's not going to necessarily go around it. And maybe if he does want to answer questions, he might feel like he can't.
Yeah, well, he won't have the opportunity tomorrow because they're not letting him be seen by the White House press pool. Sarah, fascinating conversation. We appreciate it. We'll read about it in your newsletter as the media starts covering itself being upset, which is something the media loves to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Moderates versus progressives, Reagan Republicans versus MAGA supporters. Political civil war is raging in both parties. So what does this mean for all of us who just want our government to work? Hint, it's not going to end well. Plus, police now say Gabby Petito was killed in Wyoming. Where is her boyfriend? There's now dive teams who are looking for Brian Laundrie. He returned home from a road trip without his fiancee, Gabby Petito. We've been talking about it for a long time. Laundrie returned home to Florida more than a week after Petito was last seen. Past couple of days, her body was found and identified near Jackson, Wyoming, up in Grand Teton National Park. That's where they were on a camping trip and were last reported together. All right, now, all the way down here is where the teams are now searching for the boyfriend. Here's Gabby's father.
First of all, you came home without it. Then you had the van for 10 days in your driveway. So now I got what happened with the van. Did you clean it? Did your parents help you clean it? Did they help cover up a crime? After the fact, I want to know. Like, I got these questions.
Just 2 days after Laundrie was named a person of interest in Petito's case, his parents reported him missing and said that he went to the Carlton Reserve Park. We'll show you where it is. This is Northport, Florida. This is where the boyfriend's house is, the boyfriend's parents' house, Sarasota County. Here's I-75. The other side of it is this area called Carlton Reserve here. Swampy area, alligator infested. The cops have been there for 4 days. They just brought in the dive team. We want to give you a sense of exactly how big this area is. Carlton Reserve, 33.38 approximate square miles, roughly the size of Disney World, just a little bit smaller than Disney World. So you get a sense of just how large of an area this is. Very few roads, swampy, infested with alligators, bugs, snakes, all those things, making searching in there very difficult. News Nation's Brian Enton live in Northport outside of the boyfriend's house. Brian, this is sort of the first day that we've had to digest the news, as it were, because there weren't a lot of new developments. But what I'm wondering most is, why is the police still focused on this Carlton Reserve?
Well, that's really the big question today. Why are they so focused? We know that Brian Laundrie's parents told them that he was hiking there on Tuesday of last week. We know that the parents told the police that. That's initially what sent them out to the reserve. And now we're wondering, do they know something more? Is there something else that's leading them there? What was so interesting today is that for the first time we saw these dive teams come in with scuba equipment and other equipment we haven't seen before, so they could actually go under the water. Is there something that they know that's leading them to the lakes at this point? We're not sure, Leland.
Yeah, and that's sort of an interesting question here because you think about the timeline. June, the couple leaves on the road trip. August 12th, Moab police respond to that altercation, and you've been talking about that video that we've seen of the dash cam, the body cam footage of the police officers talking to him. Brian returns home on September 1st alone. 11 days later, all right, is when Gabby Petito is reported missing. Laundrie refuses to talk to police. The 17th, he's reported missing. The 19th, the body's found. Has anybody asked police why they let Brian Laundrie go for a hike without him being under surveillance?
Again, we would like to ask police that. They haven't been doing interviews ever since that came out, but it was so interesting because last week, every day when the police were holding news conferences, we would say, do you know where Brian Laundrie is? And the chief said every single day, yes, we know exactly where he is. We're not going to give you that information, but we know where he is. So all week we were thinking, okay, he's either in the house or he's another location. They're surveilling him. They know where he is. Then Friday comes along and all of a sudden they tell us Brian Laundrie is missing. So was he not under surveillance? How did he just disappear? We still don't know, but that is a very important unanswered question.
All right, so here's John Walsh had this take earlier. Take a listen.
My philosophy is he never went to the swamp. His parents and the lawyer on the phone bought him 4 days to get out in front of this. What if he came back with the van? He was there for 10 days, great amount of time to prepare for an escape, could have scrubbed the van. I'm surprised if the FBI finds anything in that van or anything in the house.
John Walsh of America's Most Wanted, who obviously has a lot of experience in this. The camper behind you, though, could be significant because if you think about this from September 1st, when Brian returns home, to when the girlfriend is reported missing, we now know that she was dead in Wyoming. That camper van wasn't always there, right?
So this is a new interesting element today. Let me show you this. The neighbors across the street, you can't really see because it's so dark, but you see where that light is flickering. The neighbors across the street today said that they saw Brian Laundrie's mother, father, and Brian 1 week ago, a week to a week and a half ago, they weren't sure about the date, loading up this camper van like they were going to go camping. This is while Brian's fiance, Gabby Petito, is missing. Obviously, the neighbors at the time didn't think it was that strange, but now that all of this is unfolding are thinking, how odd that they would be loading up for a camping trip, loading up this camper van, hooking it up to the back of the pickup truck, all while Gabby has disappeared.
And one last question. I only got about 30 seconds, but this is bewildering to me. Brian returns home, the boyfriend, who was on this excursion out west with his girlfriend. The girlfriend does not return, and it takes 10 days to report her missing. Why?
Again, the million-dollar question, why? What were Brian Laundrie's parents, who are in this house behind me right now, by the way, what were they thinking when the son comes back and the fiance isn't there? And there's this element. Gabby Petito's mother says she was texting the parents of Brian Laundrie saying, where's Gabby? We haven't heard from Gabby. Wow. And according to Gabby's parents, they were just ignored by Brian's parents.
As you point out, so many questions, so few answers. You continue to be on the story. Brian, great work. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Leland.
All right. The president spent the day twisting arms in backroom meetings at the White House, trying to keep progressives from derailing his domestic agenda. But the Democrats aren't the only ones with a political civil war. We tell you what President George W. Bush announced today. Sadly, compromise has become a dirty word in Washington, and certainly not something you can fundraise off of. There are now dueling inter-party civil wars breaking out between the Democrats internally and among Republicans as well. The president today trying to corral lawmakers in his own party with little political capital left to burn, holding meetings with Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Schumer, also sitting down with moderates, including Senators Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who've opposed Democrats' $3.5 trillion spending package, a so-called liberal wish list. And the president has also sat down with those with the wish list, progressives, who are threatening to derail the bipartisan infrastructure bill unless that $3.5 trillion spending bill is passed first. We understand the president wrapped up those meetings just about an hour and a half ago. It's not just the Democrats in disarray. The rift among Republicans is taking a dramatic turn as well. All-star panel on deck. Vince Colonnese, editorial director for the Daily Caller, Sarah Westwood, to talk about the Republican side of this. We start, however, with Julie Grace Buffkey, Capitol Hill reporter for the New York Post, and Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill, our sister company. Appreciate you all being with us. Niall, start with you. President hosts these meetings at the White House right now with approval ratings at an all-time low, 43%. What does the president have to offer when he tries to arm twist at these meetings?
I think it's more about what he has to threaten, Leland, honestly. And what he has to threaten is the idea that if these deals don't go through, it will really capsize his first term in a very significant way. President Biden's really playing for all the chips here. All his domestic agenda is jammed into these two bills, in essence. If they were both to fall, it's almost impossible to imagine him doing these things piecemeal. So basically, his appeal is, don't mess me up here, stick with me.
Julie Grace, I know there's been a lot of folks who've come back to Capitol Hill from the White House today. Any of them mention whether those threats work?
Now, I've spoken to multiple lawmakers. I know that on the progressive end of things, they absolutely are still standing by that they want to see the reconciliation bill come first. Now, on the other side, moderates are still kind of digging in. They're sticking with that September 27th deadline, despite progressives really pushing, saying that it's an arbitrary deadline. So it looks like right now that the bill on Monday is likely to go down.
All right, Niall, so that goes down. What's left in the president's arsenal, so to speak?
Well,
yeah, I mean, they could definitely still.
Ladies first. Go ahead, Julie Grace.
I mean, they could definitely still at a later date, I think, bring back up the bipartisan bill once the reconciliation bill kind of comes together and they're able to, I mean, if and when the reconciliation bill is able to come together, if they're able to get an agreement, the moderates in the Senate are willing to agree upon. But I mean, yeah, I think the progressives and leadership's push for those to pass kind of in conjunction with each other still definitely is a possibility, despite facing an uphill battle.
Yeah, I want to get to this in terms of what's happened, though, around all of this. Is progressives have managed to take down or take out the funding for Israel's Iron Dome, which is their missile protection system, saves a lot of lives. Shooting down Israel's Iron Dome, Democrats pull funding for missile defenses that save civilian lives, is how the Wall Street Journal headlined it. Niall, this really proves now that the progressives, specifically the two most vocal Muslim members of Congress, are pretty powerful. Maybe are they more powerful than the Jewish lobby, the pro-Israel lobby right now?
I actually think it's more about a generational shift in a way among liberals, Leland. I think that for the current leadership of the Democratic Party, older, frankly, Democrats, there was a sense decades ago that Israel was more a cause of liberals. Generationally, that has shifted. I think you see a lot of more progressive people, irrespective of their religious identity, seeing Israel as more of an aggressor in the Middle East. I don't personally think it's anti-Semitic, but I do think that it is a very significant shift in how Israel is seen by people who broadly identify themselves as liberals or progressives or leftists.
Yeah. Perhaps the most charitable thing you could say is it's anti-Israel rather than anti-Semitic, but often the two go hand in hand. Julie Grace, you wrote a piece about this for the New York Post. Evidently, leadership sort of said to Israel, don't worry, this is going to come at a later time. But it does really beg some serious questions in terms of whether Democrats in Congress have Israel's back, doesn't it?
No, I've spoken to a lot of Democrats across the spectrum, even some very far left Democrats that were pretty outraged by that language being taken out of the bill yesterday. Now, that being said, Rosa DeLauro just introduced a bill that's supposed to pass as a suspension bill, which will only require 2/3 majority to be able to pass that funding. But there are a lot of concerns on how it'll play out politically, whether Republicans are going to hit them on that during the election cycle, and what it's going to do ultimately to foreign relations and what message it sends to the United States allies.
Yeah, no kidding, and who can capitalize on it. Niall, Julie Grace, great conversation. Thank you both. We'll have a lot to talk about next week, especially, Julie, as you point out. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Not to be outdone by the Democrats, Republicans are having their own fight, and brings up this sort of question. Who wins in a fight between President Trump and George W. Bush? Well, they're going to be going head-to-head, at least through proxies, in Wyoming. President Bush is going to reportedly headline a fundraiser next month for Trump's arch nemesis in the GOP, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, in what would be Bush's first event for a Republican for the upcoming midterm cycle. We bring in Vince Colonnese, Sarah Westwood. Nice to see you both. Vince, does this sort of lay bare this rift and divide between George W. Bush Republicans, Reagan Republicans, and the MAGA world?
Well, the feud between the two of them is long running, mostly a one-sided battle. Of course, George W. Bush has been the target of so many attacks from Donald Trump from the moment that he was running for president the first time. The first time that he actually went the distance in 2016. And I think what you're looking at now is a fight between a guy who has a sizable constituency, Donald Trump, and a guy who really doesn't have a sizable constituency other than among a few establishment Republicans, George W. Bush. And I think, as we exit Afghanistan, it's one of those things to remember. It's like, Republicans broadly are much more with Donald Trump on a host of issues, to include foreign entanglements, than they are with George W. Bush, who they see as a part of a status quo in Washington that they've rejected. And so I think this is just the latest iteration in that battle.
Well, and President Trump didn't waste any time bringing that up. In fact, he just put out a statement that came to us in the past couple of minutes. We're going to put it up on the screen, at least in part, Sarah, as we get to you. Bush is the one who got us into the quicksand of the Middle East, and after spending trillions of dollars and killing nearly 1 million people, he continues going after George W. Bush. Sarah, I guess the question would be, and let me think about the right way to say this, how can Republicans capitalize on the civil war that we just heard about, that's certainly raging right now on Capitol Hill among Democrats, if they're at odds with each other?
Well, I don't think that the rifts within the GOP are necessarily comparable to the ones that we see among Democrats right now. For Democrats, this is more of a day-to-day thing. They're divided on how to conduct their domestic policy agenda, their foreign policy agenda, just on a day-to-day basis, just on passing individual pieces of legislation. But when it comes to Republicans, they are really unified for all intents and purposes in their opposition to Democratic policies, in the way they've been criticizing the Biden administration. But where their divides lie is sort of in the future of the party and what direction they should go next. That's not as time sensitive as the kind of divides that you see among Democrats. Those need to be solved right away for Biden to have any chance of having a successful presidency, given the likelihood that he's going to lose at least one chamber of Congress next November. For Republicans, they have some time to figure this out. The midterms for them could be a really important test of whether Donald Trump's clout within the Republican Party remains into next year. He's already done more than 40 endorsements, a lot of those in primaries. So that'll be a really key test.
And we've seen that
power among Republicans.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that President Trump does well, or his endorsees do well in primaries. Whether or not they do so well in general elections is something different. But you say day-to-day, that it's not a day-to-day fight. Then you look at this headline from the Wall Street Journal. Trump's looks for challenger to depose Mitch McConnell as split widens. GOP's most influential figure and its top elected official are divided on policy, politics, and who should lead the party in the future. All right, so Vince, Trump versus Bush, we know where you come down to. Where do you come down, Trump versus McConnell?
Well, McConnell is definitely an establishment figure. There's no way to escape that. And I think, again, this is sort of that anti-establishment streak in Trump. Remember, I mean, a lot of the stuff that animates Trump is looking back and feeling like he was failed legislatively by people like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, and that they didn't do more to help him secure the border and secure all of the goals that he had for his presidency. Now, Mitch McConnell's an interesting one because Trump was pleased with him when it came to approving so many judges to fill the federal judiciary. And I think we're seeing some of the legacy of that right now as Joe Biden has to struggle with a court system that doesn't reflexively go along with every executive order he passes. But this is, I think it's a meaningful fight. And when Trump says stuff like this, it's not just Trump, it's the Republican base says things like, where's Mitch McConnell? Why isn't he fighting for me? What does he even believe in? So Trump, as usual, is channeling a sizable portion of the party.
You and I, Vince, have often taught that the two people you don't bet against in Washington are Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi. But you bring up this good point in terms of where is the party headed. This is the most recent poll about the field for 2024, which is sort of the only way to poll this of who leads the party. Trump, 58%, Pence, 13%, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, 9%. Sarah, I got 30 seconds or so. Is there anybody who can challenge Donald Trump, be it Mitch McConnell or anyone else, not for the presidency, but for control right now of the party?
Well, right now, as long as Donald Trump is remaining as vocal and as active as he is, there's not really a lot of oxygen for anyone else to take up that mantle. And very few have even really tried. There have been some very conservative candidates, politicians, people taking up the populism mantle, but no one who's really tried to emulate his style and his approach. And until someone is able to do that successfully, there's nowhere else for his base to really go.
Well, yeah, and they're certainly not going to go to somebody like Chris Christie, who's sort of spoken out against the base. Vince, Sarah, great conversation. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Leon.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. COVID vaccinations in kids. So we're about to have a fight on this for kids as young as 5 years old. We're going to tell you what Florida's new Surgeon General says about vaccinating your kids. New protests out of Australia show exactly what can happen when vaccine mandates take over. These groups say they will be out every day protesting against forced inoculation. Tomorrow, we're going to take a closer look at the violent response to Australia's COVID police state. Thankfully, here at home, it hasn't come to that. Already, some of America's largest schools, though, say students 12 and older must have the vaccine. Now, Pfizer says they have vaccine study data for 5 to 11-year-olds. So, will they face mandates? Unlikely in the state of Florida, if the new Surgeon General has anything to say about it.
Dr. Joseph Ladapo will be succeeding Dr. Scott Rifkes as the Surgeon General for the state of Florida. DeSantis and the leadership here in Florida to...
That is Florida's new Surgeon General. You might recognize him from the show, UCLA doctor known for his willingness to challenge the scientific community. Here he is last week talking about vaccines in kids. Vaccine mandate for students 12 and older in LA public schools. Would you tell your kids to get vaccinated?
Oh, I absolutely wouldn't.
All right. And in that interview, he cited a lot of data we were interested in. Perhaps some of the reasons that studies show 65% of parents say either absolutely not or they will wait to see before vaccinating their kids. Professor at Washington University in St. Louis of data science, features editor of the Harvard Data Science Review, Liberty Vittert, also my parents' favorite daughter, joins us to crunch the numbers. All right, Liberty, you look at this in totality for kids. COVID more dangerous or the flu more dangerous?
In a word, they're about the same. So a lot of cherry picking of the data has been happening here. And if you look at the past year, there's only been one reported death by the CDC of a death from the flu for a child, but that's really cherry picking the data. If we look at apples to apples, which is the 2019 to 2020 year before we had masking and all of this stuff that were lowering the flu deaths, we saw 195 deaths of children of the flu in that year, which is almost exactly comparable to the number of COVID deaths in that year. And we also hear a lot about hospitalizations and people talking about hospitalizations. And in fact, the number of children hospitalized with the flu this year has been 3 to 4 times that of the number hospitalized with COVID. So in that sense, the flu is much more dangerous.
Okay, so that is what you're protecting against, either COVID or the flu as a baseline that we all understand. But there's some dangers specifically to kids for the vaccine. Do we have enough data to understand that yet?
So anytime you're looking at taking a vaccine, it's a cost-benefit analysis, right? So what are the risks of getting the vaccine versus what are the risks of getting the disease that the vaccine prevents against? And there is preliminary data that especially in young males, if they take the mRNA vaccine, which is either Pfizer or Moderna, that there is a real increased risk in myocardial or pericarditis, which is sort of an inflammation of the heart. And absolutely that risk is higher than their risk of dying of COVID should they get it. So the preliminary data is really showing absolutely no support for mandating vaccines in children.
Fascinating. And certainly, we only got about 20 seconds, but certainly a lot more kids die from other things than they do of COVID and the flu combined, right?
If we're looking at things that we should really care about our children, more children die of pneumonia, COVID, flu, cancer, and opioids combined than COVID. So gun deaths account for 1/3 of child deaths. Those are the things we should really be concerned about.
All right. We're going to hope to talk to Dr. Ladapo about that and his new role as Florida Surgeon General in the coming days. Liberty, thanks. We'll be right back.